Hey everybody, and welcome back, and happy Wednesday, and to now for something a little bit different, episode 45. That's right, guys, I am back. It's been a couple weeks, and work has kept me busy. God, I had a little bit of a cold. My arthritis was acting up. It was one thing after another, guys, but that's okay. These things happen, life happens sometimes, but I'm back, and I'm glad to be here. And today, guys, not only am I going to be covering a really cool film, I'm also going to be giving you some really exciting news. So, part of the reason why you guys haven't seen me is the stuff I mentioned. The arthritis was unfortunately acting up. I was sick for a little bit. It just the perfect storm, those two, and then work. But then part of it is I've been lucky enough to join some of my fellow podcasters on some of their shows. So last week, Brad and Troy from the Not a Bomb podcast, one of my favorite podcasts, were kind enough to host me and let me join in. And we talked about the movie Euro Trip, which is a film from 2004. It's basically a raunchy teen comedy, something along in the veins of the stuff from, paying homage to the stuff from the 80s or, at the time, early 2000s, stuff like Tomcats, American Pie, maybe Saving Silverman, the Road Trip, movies along that vein. So I was lucky enough to be able to join these guys. These guys have become good friends over the last year. My second time on the show, and we had a very lively discussion. And despite what they think, I championed this fine movie. I still anxiously await the Criterion or Arrow edition of this film. Um, Troy and Brad seem to think otherwise, but that's okay. I get it. It's not a perfect film, but it's an enjoyable film. But I digress. I will not go into the true extent of my feelings on the wonderful film that I shall call the 2004 film Euro Trip. But instead, I will suggest you guys check out Brad and Troy every week at the Not a Bomb podcast. And like I said, if you go on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can find their entire run of podcasts as well as the one I did with for Euro Trip. So I did that. That was last Monday, and then that came out last Wednesday. And then Friday, I was lucky enough to join a new friend, Rob, and Rob and his partner Joe have another wonderful podcast called Caliber 9 from Outer Space. And what they do is it's kind of like a drive-in feature. You have your A movie and your B movie. And I've been a fan since they started. And I was emailing back and forth, complimenting them on their show, and saying, hey, listen, I'd love to come on. You guys can come on my show. And it was a really good experience. Unfortunately, Joe at the time, he just couldn't make it. He was busy that day, but I got to spend some time with Rob. And when I was on Caliber 9 from Outer Space with Rob, we covered two fantastic films, in my opinion. Um, we covered the 2011 Astron 6 film Father's Day, which is absolutely batshit crazy. And if you go to Caliber 9 from Outer Space, you'll hear me talk about that with Rob. And then we also talked about um, Mother's Day. Mother's Day was a film that came out in 1980. It was directed by Lloyd Kaufman of Troma, his brother Charles Kaufman, and effectively it takes place in New Jersey. You have these three college friends who get together every year and they'd like, plan this like kind of effectively like a trip, a weekend. You know how it is when you graduate from school. Sometimes you don't see your friends as much as you'd like to. So you have to make like a big thing of it, an expedition. So each year, one of the three friends will pick what this year's trip is, but they keep it a mystery to the other friends. So lo and behold, they decide to go camping in, of all places, Jersey. Giving us Jersey people a bad rep in this movie because they go camping and I don't even know, I forget where it was filmed, but it was filmed somewhere in Jersey. I think maybe by the Pine Barrens, which is, kind of redneckish, and like any other pocket of the country. New Jersey has it has North Jersey, where we get the stereotypes. Everyone thinks we sound like for from an episode of Sopranos, or we talk like this, from North Jersey, or they think we're rednecks because they think of the Pine Barrens and the New Jersey Devils and the New Jersey Rednecks. What they forget, the rest of the world forgets, is you know if you take away North Jersey and you take away the rednecks, there are normal people in Jersey. Now, I'm not one of these normal people. I'm probably just as fucked up as both those two groups, but that's okay. I was dropped as a child, and it's a cross I bear, or maybe just not dropped hard enough. I don't know, depending on who you talk to. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, effectively, these girls go camping. Uh, they're assaulted by these two, literally mama's boys. These two guys that live with their mom, who's very controlling, and basically they torture, rape, you know, just make life a living hell for these girls. And then eventually these girls turn the table on things and they get their revenge. This is also a really great movie. I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit. I don't want to give away all my feelings on this film because I want you guys to go to Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Um, I believe that episode will not be coming out this Friday, but the following Friday. So if you guys can wait till next Friday, go to Caliber 9 from Outer Space, that should be releasing. So yeah, so I've been a busy guy in some sense. So I did those two podcasts, and then I was on Sunday. I was on my good buddy Jose's podcast, Watch Skip Plus, and I get to meet his co-host Alex for the first time, who is a great guy. And we talked about a little independent film called Strange Darling. Um, and Strange Darling, I'm not going to get into too much about this film, because the less you know, I think the more enjoyable the experience will be. Basic premise is uh, what we think a guy that's a serial killer, effectively going after a woman who is a victim. And I know that's very vague, but I'm going to leave it at that, guys, because if I go in any further, I think I'm going to take away some of the twists and turns and some of the interesting things or things that make this film unique and fun. Um, I definitely think it's worth your time. Um, I'm not 100% sure. I think this episode might be coming out this Friday or Saturday, but if not, then it'll be coming out the following Friday or Saturday. But again, watch Skip Plus with Jose and Alex. Those guys are absolutely amazing. They put out a great podcast every week, and they cover all the stuff that's currently playing, or not everything that's currently playing in the movie theater, but they pick every week when a film comes out, they pick a movie and they talk about it. So yeah, so that's some stuff that I've seen recently. And normally I would talk to you guys obviously more about what I watched and go into slightly more detail. But because I was lucky enough to be on these podcasts, um, I'll elaborate a lot more on those podcasts. So this gives you incentive to check out these podcasts, guys. So definitely, like I said, Not a Bomb, Caliber 9 from Outer Space, and Watch Skip Plus. They're all great podcasts, all worthy of your time. So that's what I've been watching. And that's what I've been up to, guys. I miss talking to everybody. Of course, I love doing this. Um, and it's been really a unique and awesome experience because I always love talking film. And whether it's talking to you guys directly, like I'm having a conversation between me and you, the audience, even if I'm the talkative one talking the whole time, or whether you see me or hear me talking to a fellow friend, it's been a wonderful experience. I'm in August now, and I think in another, no, not even, probably about a week ago, marked, I don't know the exact date, but early to mid March marked the 1 year mark of me starting this show. So, and my first video way back when was the independent film Bug, which is a great film. and I did a very short review. It was just under 5 minutes. And of course, anytime you do something for the first time, you look back and you're like, man, there's a million things I could have done better about that. Someday I might even go back and do a re-review of Bug because it's such a interesting and fun film. And I think I was a little bit nervous, and I probably didn't do it quite the justice it deserves, because the film deserves it deserves to be seen. It's such a unique film. But anyway, I digress. Uh, it's a year later, and I hit the 1 year anniversary, so it's pretty exciting. And here I am talking to you guys about episode 45. And episode 45, that's a good pathway into, is the 2000 film Quills. Now, Quills was directed by a gentleman named Philip Kaufman. Um, Philip Kaufman was born in Chicago, Illinois. He attended the University of Chicago, and later he went to Harvard Law School. He won the Prix de l'Art Nouvelle Award in Cannes in 1965 for his film, uh, The Goldstein. Yes, Goldstein. Okay, and that was in '64. Excuse me. The film came out '64. He won the prize in '65. Excuse me. Um, he was also prolific as a screenwriter. He was a screenwriter for The Outlaw Josie Wales, and was actually set to direct the film, but was later replaced by Clint Eastwood. Um, his first big hit as a director was the '78 Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That was a remake of Don Siegel's version in 1956. Siegel apparently, interesting piece of trivia, even has a cameo in it, so something to look out for if you're familiar with what he looks like. I haven't seen either of those two films. I'm kind of ashamed because I am a sci-fi and I am a horror, and obviously the best of both worlds in that you get the sci-fi horror thing, and I really need to cross both those films off my list. It's just something that needs to get done. Oh, shaky cam there for a second, guys. Bring you back to the Evil Dead. Bring you the shaky cam. That's what Raimi used to do back in the day when he was shooting. He wanted to give you that unique effect, give you the shake cam. But I digress. Off the rails again, guys. Um, so Kaufman was actually nominated for his first Oscar in '88 for a film called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Um, some other interesting trivia about Kaufman is he actually worked with Lucas, George Lucas, coming up with the basic idea for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Um, and other interesting things, he actually met Lucas in the mid '70s when he was working on a Star Trek movie prior to the release of Star Wars. And apparently, Star Wars, before it was released, there was a lot of negative buzz, and people thought, sorry, distract there for a second, guys. Bear with me. People thought, I didn't, they thought sci-fi was dead. And they basically effectively told him, because they thought Star Wars was going to tank at the box office and they thought sci-fi was dead. A studio executive basically canceled his screenplay for the Star Trek script that he was working on. Paramount decided to pull the plug on the Star Trek film, citing there's no future in science fiction. So little did they know, a few years later, that if we would get, Star Wars and get all the knockoffs of Star Wars and, a bunch of other stuff, how many knockoffs of Star Wars were there? I couldn't even imagine to count. Battle Beyond the Stars was the first one that comes to mind. There's a million of them. But anyway, yeah, so that's a little interesting piece of trivia about our man. So some of his films, like I mentioned, the first one that he won his first award for, Goldstein, came out in '64. He did a film in '67 called Fearless Frank. Invasion of the Body Snatchers in '78. The Wanderers in '79. The Right Stuff in '83. The Unbearable Lightness of Being in '83. Henry and June in 1990. Rising Sun in '93. Then we flash forward to Quills in 2000. Twisted in 2004. And then in 2012, he did a film called Hemingway and Gellhorn. Clive Owen, I want to say maybe Nicole Kidman. Wasn't half bad. For me, there's a lot of gaps in what I've seen and what I haven't seen. I saw the Hemingway and Gellhorn film. I did enjoy it. Seen Quills. Um, I haven't seen anything else this guy's done. And I like Quills so much, playing my hand early, guys, but I like Quills so much. I need to go back and correct that because I definitely need to go look into some of his earlier work. Um, Now, when we get into our screenwriters, guys, we have Doug Wright. Now, what's interesting is Doug Wright also wrote, I guess, a version of this that was premiered as a play. He wrote that and he wrote the screenplay. Um, he also did, of all things, in 2006, Tony Bennett, an American classic. I guess it was like a concert for Tony Bennett. And he also wrote a script for a film in 2023 called The Burial, which sounds familiar, but I can't place it. But I'm going to have to check it out because it's a shame that this guy only has a handful of screenplay credits. And like I said, I really enjoyed this film a lot, and I'm going to go into why and all that stuff later. But it's always a shame when you see someone with so much talent. You're like, you only have like three credits, man. What's going on here? Uh, Now this brings us to our cinematography. Our cinematography, I can make words, I promise, is a guy named Rogier Stoffers. And hopefully I got your name pronounced not completely horrible, Rogier Stoffers. Um, he did films like Alaska in '89, um, Quills in 2000, John Q in 2002, Enough in 2002. Masked and Anonymous. Hold on one second, guys. My stupid tablet. I like to call it my cheat sheet. Every once in a while, it wants to act up. Masked and Anonymous in '03. Bad News Bears in '05. That's the remake. Disturbia in '07. The Secret Life of Bees in '08. Lakeview Terrace also in '08. Death at a Funeral in 2010. The Vow in 2012, What If in 2013, The House with the Clock on Its Walls in 2018, Fear of the Night in 2023. And I probably shouldn't mention this because I know everybody hates this movie, and maybe it's not doing promoting this guy. Borderlands in 2024. Yeah, I know everybody hated Borderlands, and listen, guys, I never played the video game. I know it has a huge fan base. I know a lot of people have issues with the casting. It was not a great movie. I don't think it was a god awful movie. Again, I'm probably the only guy that's going to say that. Everybody else probably thinks it's horrible, and I'm not by any means repping for the movie. I'm just saying I don't think it was god awful. Again, if I played the video games, I might have had a different opinion. I do think some of the people weren't effective. Like I agree, Kevin Hart. I don't know anything about Roland, but apparently he's not short and goofy like Kevin Hart is. You know what I mean? Uh, but like I said, I took enjoyment from the film. I don't know. Kill, call me a martyr if you will, a glutton for punishment. Um, This brings us to our editing. We have a gentleman named Peter Boyle, and Peter Boyle has done stuff like lose my place again, guys. Inseminoid, and that's a horror film from '81. It's a pretty fun one if you haven't seen it. Fanny Hill in '83, The Razor's Edge in '84, Morons from Outer Space in '85. That's a goofy movie, but also a very fun movie. And there we go, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves in '91. Oh, and we got also another. We got some Kevin Costner action going on here. He did Waterworld in '95. He did The Postman in '97. Star Crazy in '98. The Hours in 2000. Twisted in 2004. Derailed in '05. 1408. That was a solid flick. I like that one. '07. The Thing remake in 2011. And The Man in the Hat in 2020. So, not a bad little resume there. And then that brings us to our music. We have a gentleman named Stephen Warbeck. Now, Stephen Warbeck has done not a ton of stuff, but you might know the film. I can make words, I promise, guys. It's been a long day. My Son the Fanatic, which came out in 97. And then he followed that up in 98 with Shakespeare in Love. Then he did Heart in 99. Mystery Man, got a rep for Mystery Man. Woo-hoo. I love some Mystery Man in 99. A Christmas Carol in 99. Billy Elliot in 2000. Captain Corelli's Mandolin in 2001. Birthday Girl in 2001. Charlotte Gray in 2001. Got a rep for that one because my man Billy Crudup's in that film. So, gotta say good things. My man Billy. Also Kate Blanchett. Not a bad little film. Proof in '05, and then Gala Walkers in 2012. So yeah, another guy that has a nice little resume there. All right. So with that all said and done, I figure now is a good time to go into our cast. Now, I will say when I go into the cast, guys, I do list a bunch of titles, but obviously, some of these guys have been working for years and they might have 150 titles, under their belt. I'm not going to mention everything. I try to mention some of the ones that I think people know, or the ones that I think are interesting. So our main lead is Jeffrey Rush. Now, Jeffrey Rush plays the Marquis de Sade, and Marquis de Sade, it's French, and I can't pronounce names, guys. So we're gonna say Marquis de Sade. Probably gonna end up saying Marquis de Sade. Gonna be cursing a lot as I mispronounce names the entire time I'm doing this, but that's okay. I'm okay with it. I've accepted my inability to pronounce names properly. You can just call me the butcher. Um, All right. Now, some interesting things about Jeffrey Rush. He won an Oscar for the film Shine in '97. He actually was nominated for Quills, but did not win, unfortunately. He made his debut with a TV series called Manetti, which premiered in 1980, ran from 80 to 81, and he was in 13 episodes. That was his big debut. He'd go on to stuff like the film Starstruck in '82. Oh, sorry, guys. Um, 12th Night in '86. What else? Shine in '96. Children of the Revolution in '96. Les Miserables in '98. Shakespeare in Love in '98. Mystery Men. Here we go. Got to rep some Mystery Men in '99. House on Haunted Hill and the remake in '99. Frida in 2002. Come on, tablet, work with me here. Work with me, tablet. My tablet is being a pain in the ass, guys. It usually behaves pretty well, but every once in a while it wants to tell me what to do or curse me off by not working. Um, the King's Speech in 2010, which is a big film for him. The Best Offer in 2013, which is another solid film. The Book Thief, and I don't care what anyone says, Gods of Egypt. I know Alex Proyas is effectively an asshole these days with all his nonsense and bullshit about, I'm not going to go into The Crow, guys. I'm not going to go into it because I'll just go on another rambling rant. And if you guys follow my show, you've probably heard me and Mike back in the day when Mike was part of this show. We had some interesting words to say about The Crow and Alex Proyas. Talented guy, but a loudmouth. I'm a loudmouth. We know our own. So, all right, enough of that. I don't want to go off on a rant about The Crow, I promise. Um, Next, we have Kate Winslet. And Kate Winslet is playing the role of Madeline. Madeline is a servant at the Insane Asylum. Um, she also is an Oscar winner for the 2009 film The Reader. Um, her big debut was in a TV series from 1991 called Shrinks. Um, She also did a show called Dark Season in '91. She did 6 episodes, and then from there we start getting into some of her film career. And she's had some pretty good choices, even right off the get-go. She did Heavenly Creatures in '94. That was the Peter Jackson film. Then we go ahead and do A Kid in King Arthur's Court in '95. Hamlet in '96, and of course '97 Titanic, the one that everyone saw 10 times. Iris in 2001, The Life of David Gale in 03. In 04, we did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The list goes on and on. I'm not going to go into everything with her. I know last year she did the Avatar film, this the sequel, which I haven't seen, but I'm just not an Avatar guy. It's just not my cup of tea. Um, our next person to talk about is our man Joaquin Joaquin Phoenix. Really, guys, I can pronounce some of these names right. I promise. Joaquin Phoenix. Okay, he plays Calamir, who's a priest at this asylum. He's a good, kind man who genuinely cares about the patients at the Abbey, and he tries to be Marquis' friend by helping him. Uh, Things get a little complicated. I'll get into that when I get into the story. He also won an Oscar for the film Joker in 2020, the second actor to win an Oscar for that film. Did I'm trying to think. I know Ledger did. I'm wondering, did Nicholson win an Oscar for Joker? I should know that being a comic book nerd. He might have won an Oscar for his portrayal of the Joker in the '89 Batman. I don't remember. You guys can call me out on that for not knowing that. He must have been nominated. I have a feeling he did win, but if he didn't win, he was definitely nominated. Um, he made his debut in '82 in a television show called For Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. He was on one episode. And then, man, this freaking tablet's being a pain in the ass. Then he did an ABC after school special. He did an episode, one episode in '84. He did an episode of The Fall Guy. Remember that show from the '80s in '84? Then in '86, we flash forward and he did Space Camp. And that movie, unfortunately, as we all know, had bad timing because what, like a month or two earlier, they just had that horrible accident with that spaceship that blew up as it went to launch. So obviously, this movie was not set to do good things box office wise. He also did in '87 a movie called The Ruskies, and then in '89 he did Parenthood, the movie. Um, then in '95 we flash forward, and he had a really big breakout role with Gus Van Sant's film To Die For. That was a big deal in his career. And I think it really also just kind of really showcased his abilities. Not that the other stuff hadn't, but I think that was one of the ones that really just stood out. He did Inventing the Abbots in '97, also starring my man Billy Crudup. U-Turn in '97, he had a really fun part in that. Now we go to '98. He's in a really great indie film called Return to Paradise. Now that movie does not get talked about. I don't know if it has a Blu-ray release. Definitely a DVD release. Solid indie film. Check it out, guys. Also Vince Vaughn. So it's worth your time. And Vince Vaughn in a dramatic role. The Yards in 2000. Gladiator 2000. Signs in 2002. The Village in 2004. Walk the Line, where he was nominated for an Academy Award. Then in 2010, he did the film I'm Still Here, which he actually directed. So that's interesting. Brings us to 2012, the film Master, Her in 2013, Inherent in Vice in 2014, another underrated film. You guys should check that out. Beau is Afraid in 2023, which I have not seen, and Napoleon in 2023. Obviously, The Joker came out in 2019. That's the one he won the Oscar for. Um, Now we got Michael Caine. Michael Caine is playing Royer Collard, and he's a doctor. Basically, he's a prestigious doctor in Paris, where our story takes place, and he's known for getting results. And effectively, when they hear that our man, the Marquis de Sade, is misbehaving at this asylum, the king sends him because he can figure he can kind of keep him in line and do what's got to get done to make sure our Marquis de Sade behaves. So um, now a guy like Michael King, I probably don't even have to get into his resume, but I'll go into some of the bigger things. He did Zulu in '64, the Ypres File in '65, the Italian Job in '69, Get Carter in '71. The Man Who Would Be King in '75, A Bridge Too Far in '77. And then we flash forward to like the '80s. He did stuff like Educating Rita in '83, Blame It in Rio, Blame It on Rio in '84, Hannah and Her Sisters in '86, and Jaws: The Revenge in '87. Now, obviously, he's done a ton of other stuff. Like he worked a lot with Christopher Nolan um, on the Batman films, and then in Inception. But I figure with a guy like Michael Caine, most of you guys kind of know him. You pretty much know who he is. You know his career. He's just a superstar. It's hard not to. So I didn't feel like I should go over everything. I probably didn't even also need to do that with Kate Winslet or Joaquin Phoenix, but what the hell? It is what it is. Next, we have young actress Amelia Warner. Now, Amelia Warner is playing the role of Simone, and she's a young girl. She's a teenager, and effectively, we find out when we get into the story um, that she is brought into an arranged marriage with Michael Caine's character, Royer Collard, the doctor that I have mentioned. Um, and she's not very happy with it. Again, going to go into that when I get to the story. Um, she's been in stuff like Mansfield Park in '99, Don Coyote in 2000. This was a TV movie. Stoned, which came out in 2005. The film Eon Flux, which came out in '05. And then what's interesting about her is she has some composer credits. She has like 5 or 6 credits as a composer. A short film called Mom, M-A-M, in 2010. Mary Shelley, which came out in 2017. And then a film called Wild Mountain Thyme, which came out in 2020. Now, I've never heard of any of these films, but I still think it's interesting when any actor transitions and does something besides just acting. She also has released 3 solo albums of classical music, and apparently they've sold pretty well. So for those of us that might be interested in classical music, check those out. Next up is Stephen Moyer. Now, if that name sounds familiar and you guys are going, where's that one from? Most of you guys probably know Stephen from uh, the TV show True Blood on HBO. I know I got hooked on that stupid show. It's very soap opera, very addicting, but it was fun. And he's playing the character of Pruix. And again, I'm mispronouncing names left and right, guys. So I apologize. He's an architect, and he is hired by the doctor, Royard Collard, um, to take this house that's kind of dilapidated. It's like a mansion that Royard Collard is given by the king, and to basically make it look nice. He's told uh, Royal Collars, the doctor, his bride, Simone, is going to give him free reign to do whatever she wants to the house. No expense, no expense spared, essentially. And there's an interesting thing that happens that I will get into with the story. Um, like I said, he's been in stuff like True Blood. He was in the 2015 film Concussion with Will Smith, the 2016 film Detour, Prince Valiant in '97, Trinity in '03, and a bunch of other stuff. Um, but he's one of those actors I feel like should be working more. I always loved him on True Blood. I thought he was super talented. And the chemistry between him and Anna Paquin was so strong that they ended up getting married and having like 2 or 3 kids. So, it's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So before I get into the story, because this is based off a real life person, the Marquis de Sade, I would go into, I figure, a little bit about the real Marquis de Sade. Now, I'm not going to go into his entire history. This is just some stuff I got off Wikipedia, and I didn't write everything down. I just kind of like a summary. Um, so the movie Quills is focusing a little bit on the like last 10 years or so of the Marquis de Sade's life. And it's really taking a lot of liberties in the sense that he was put into an insane asylum. Obviously, he's writing erotic fiction, and back in the 1700s, that was not a thing that you did without consequences. So Quills takes that premise of him being put in an insane asylum, and they just kind of add their own story to it. So there are a lot of liberties taken. If you're like someone that's read any of his stuff, or the real life history of this guy, you're going to be like, oh, well, this isn't that, but the filmmakers admit this willingly. They took liberties. But the story is effective and it's still a solid one. But anyway, uh, back to some real life history about the Marquis de Sade. He was born June 2nd, 1740, and he died December 2nd, in 1814 at the age 74. Um, he was a French writer, libertine, political activist, and he's best known for his libertine novels um, and plays and imprisonment from sex crimes, blasphemy, and pornography. So there you go. He's got the whole gamut covered there, guys, or pretty much. He's known for his novels, short stories, and plays. Some of these were published under his own name during his lifetime, but believe it or not, quite a few appeared anonymously or were published after he had passed away. Some of his well-known stuff is The 120 Days of Sodom, which was published in 1785, Justine, which was published in 1791, Philosophy in the Bedroom, which was published in 1795, and Juliet, which was published in 1799. Like I said, he died December 2nd in 1814 after an attack of a prostrating gangrenous fever. So not the best way to go, but what are you going to do? Well, stuff happens. He left instructions in his will to be buried at his property at the Malmaison without an autopsy or any pomp of any kind. However, the property had been sold years earlier. Sade was instead buried at the Charenton Asylum, is where the film takes place, um, with religious rites, which I'm sure would have driven him crazy because he was not a religious man. The religious people did not like him either, hence why he was locked away for uh, writing political stuff and pornography and all this stuff. They were not a friend of his, so I'm sure he would have not been thrilled the fact that they gave him a religious funeral. Yeah, but things happen. You're dead. You can't really control that. His surviving son, Claude Armand, had all his remaining unpublished manuscripts burnt. So I guess there was no love left between son and father there. It's a shame. I hate to see anyone's writings get burnt. I'm not a fan of book burning, guys. You may not agree with someone's politics, you may not like the writing, but fuck it, man. Don't do that shit. That's not right. But anyway, what are you gonna do? It is what it is. So that brings us to our story. Um, Now this one was kind of detailed, so I couldn't really do a lot of skimming. So you're gonna have to bear with me, guys. Our story takes place in Paris, 1794, and we're introduced to the Marquis de Sade, a man in his 60s living in the insane asylum at Charenton. A young servant, Madeline, approaches the door to de Sade's room, asking for the linens. He gives her instead his latest work of erotic fiction. Madeline takes the latest piece and walks outside to the front gates. She is stopped by a big oafish looking guy. I'd say he's best described as like a white Shrek. He's big and fat, probably 6'8", and I call him the oafish Shrek looking character named Bouchon. Bouchon is clearly not with it, and he definitely deserves to be in an insane asylum. And you can see, he's got this big shit-eating grin on his face, and he wants to get, hanky-panky with our girl Madeline here. Luckily, before he can do that, he is intercepted by our next character, our priest Calamar. I'm also probably horribly pronouncing that name, and that's our man Joaquin Phoenix, and he's a kind man who oversees the patients here at the Charenton Asylum. He reminds Bouchon to mind his manners, and Bouchon sees the authority and listens and walks away. Madeline meets a man at the front gates of the asylum and slips him the newest work. So the plot thickens. The man takes the book to his printing press, and we see a scene where everyone in Paris is reading it out loud, enthralled by it. And it's taking a fervor and Paris. People are just falling in love with that. The only thing I can imagine would be like, thankfully I've never read this crap, The Shades of Grey or 50 Shades of Grey or whatever that crap is. That my mid 50s housewives, panties got wet when it came out, and I was just like, come on, ladies, you really need to read that shit. Listen, I'm being judgmental. I know I'm being a prick. Whatever works for you, I guess. But I guess he was the equivalent of that back in 1700s. So next we see the book being read to the king, and he's quite furious. He pretty much wants to put our man Marquis straight to death. One of his aides suggests not doing that, and he says, you know what? If you do that, what's going to happen is they're just going to make him out to be a legend, and that's just going to get people more riled up. Instead, why don't we try curing him? And if we can't cure him, we can at least keep him in line. And the king's like, well, how do you propose we do that? And he's like, well, why don't we go to one of the top doctors in Paris, a gentleman named Royer Collard. And he's a very moral man. And he's the kind of guy that knows how to get shit done. And of course, this is played by Michael Caine. So our very next scene, we're introduced to Royer Collard, and we see him. He's having a man repeatedly dunked in water. He's in one of these duck tanks where they strap him in, and I guess he's trying to get a confession out of him. And that's his idea of effectively trying to treat a patient. So you can kind of see already, this guy isn't, a very kind man, not like our priest friend who truly, genuinely believes in helping people and trying to cure people of their mental illness and foster a safe and peaceful environment. Royer Carlard is kind of a bastard, and we'll find out more about that. So the next day, we cut to the doctor. He arrives at the asylum, and he's given a tour by Colomar, the priest. Uh, Collard explains to the priest the king is very interested in the Marquis de Sade. He said that's the reason he's there. Because the priest is going, why is the sudden interest? And he said, well, the sudden interest is because your man, the Marquis, is getting his works published. And he's like, published? How is he getting his works published? Um, Hold on one second, guys. How is he getting his work published if he's in here? Uh, and he's like, I don't know, but it's happening and it's got to be stopped. Um, so, our man Collier is very in shock, our priest friend, very in shock by this. And he basically told, sorry, guys, I lost my footing there for a second, doing a little slide in here. He's basically told, like, hey, listen, if you don't keep him in line, we can get the whole asylum shut down. He's like, you're going to get the whole asylum shut down for one man. He's like, yeah, the king's not happy about this, and he's a very moral man, and this gentleman, the Marquis de Sade, is obviously very amoral. He's corrupting people and fucking with people's heads, and you get where I'm going with this, guys. Um, so he basically tells him to silence the Marquis, or they'll shut the institution down. So next, we see our man, the priest, Collard, talking to the Marquis de Sade. And the Marquis, and he explains, hey, listen, this guy, this doctor means business. And if he's not careful, he's going to have to suspend all his privileges. Because the Marquis de Sade, he's got a couch, a beautiful leather couch. He's got all his writing quills and his equipment and his books. He's got a piano. I mean, he's the equivalent of like, the prisoners that go to these country club prisoners, like he's like modern day equivalent of that. They let him write, they let him do whatever he wants. His work shouldn't be getting out to the public, and our man Collard, the priest here, is telling him like, hey, dude, like let you get away with doing a lot of stuff. We foster a healthy environment. We want to cure you. We want you to get better. But this is a big no-no. And he's effectively telling them like, hey, they're going to shut down the asylum if we don't like toe the line here. And Marquis is very cocky, and he's like, hey, listen, the writing is what I do. It's and Collard's like, well, write proper stuff, write goodness. And basically he responds to that, hey, listen, we eat, we shit, we fuck, and we die. These are the eternal truths, and this is what I write. The Marquis responds, the doctor is obviously an asshole, and this is all a big joke. According to him, that's what he thinks it is. Our priest friend Collard, he tries to explain to him. He's like, "No, dude, this isn't a joke." He's like, "This guy means business, and he knows what it takes to be an SOB. He can make life very difficult." So our next scene, we cut to, we're introduced. Oh no, hold on one second, guys. Uh, 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 okay, here we go. Next scene, we see the Dr. Collard pick up his bride um, from a local convent. So, the doctor just got a big promotion here. He's got to oversee this asylum. And because of that, he's given the task of making sure the Marquis is straightened out. So because of that, the king gave him a big raise and a big promotion. Not only did they give him a big promotion and a big raise, he even gave him a mansion, guys. He gave him like, it's a little dilapidated, needs some work, but he effectively gave him like, it looks like a, pardon me, I'm moving a lot here, guys. Effectively, it looks almost like a small castle. Um, and it does need work. So he's all full of himself and he's happy. So on this particular day, we see our doctor, excuse me, go to a local convent where he picks up a young girl. Apparently, he had arranged to marry this young girl at some point in time and rescue her from her life in the convent. Um, not too willingly on her part. Not to mention the girl is barely 16, and our man, Dr. Collard here, is a guy that's probably in his mid 60s, easily. So he goes to pick up the girl. The girl's like, already? And he's like, yes, the time has come. And he takes her to this mansion that's in very much disrepair. He's like, I know it needs a lot of work, but there's an architect that I'm going to introduce you to, a gentleman named Pruix, and he's going to be at your disposal, and you can have anything done any way you want in this home. So you almost kind of feel like our man Collard here um, seems like, hey, it's all right. So I like the jailbait, but I'm going to treat you good here. You can do whatever you want in this house. You can make it your own. Um, uh, hold on one second, guys. Um, so we're next introduced to the architect that I just mentioned, Pruix, who's a handsome young guy, probably not much older than the girl, Simone, from the convent. Um, Now, when Collard, our doctor friend, is talking to Pruix, he's like, give the girl, Simone, whatever she wants, but when it comes to the bedroom, make sure that the bedroom is locked from the outside. Um, and you can only unlock it with a key, A. And B, I want bars in the window. He's like, you want bars on the window? And you want it so it can only be unlocked from the outside? It seemed kind of strange. And basically, he says to that, Simone is a rare bird, and it's a rare bird that he intends to keep caged. Um, that night, uh, at bedtime, he forces himself on her, reminding her of her wifely duties, and also reminding us that he's a bit of a hypocrite. So here he is chastising the work of the Marquis de Sade for being a pervert and this corrupter of innocence. And here he is, you know, effectively raping this 16-year-old girl and justifying it because it's his wife. She doesn't want anything to do with this guy. He picks up on the creep vibes right away. But on the same token, she didn't have an option. The nuns kind of like almost raffled her off to this guy. It's not like she had much say in the matter. It's very much to put it very politely. Arranged marriage would be very politely. It's more of a forced marriage. So now we cut back to the asylum, and all the servants are talking about the Dr. Collard. Uh, just can't. Get comfortable today, guys. I'm sorry. Dr. Collard and his 16-year-old bride, um, who he keeps caged and forces himself on. Madeline tells the Marquis about this and laughs, calling him a hypocrite. He decides to write a play about it. So, this is where things start to get fun, guys. The next night at the asylum, we see several people from high society attend this play. Um, the doctor and his wife are also in attendance. The Marquis comes out and he says he wrote a new play instead of the one that was intended to be shown, and it's dedicated to the new doctor and his wife. Uh, the whole play. Oh, by the way, the play is called Crimes of Love. Let me can't forget mentioning that. So he comes out and they have this big wild play, and the whole play is just poking fun of the doctor and his young wife and how he's forcing himself on her and basically what he's a pervert, and it's absolutely hilarious, guys. And of course, back then they had men playing the roles of women. So it just gets even more ridiculous one scene from the next. So, of course, you're seeing the doctor kind of like in awe and shock. His bride, Simone, is having the time of her life, kind of enjoying it. And he sees that she's enjoying it. And he says, no, you must leave. You must go. So my mind now, he's still watching the play, and everybody else is kind of like in shock at what's going on, what they're seeing in this play, but they're also very much enthralled by it as well. I mean, let's face it, people love train wrecks. Even back then, before trains were invented, they still love train wrecks. But everyone's enthralled by this show. Meanwhile, we see Madeline, our young servant girl, uh, in the background behind the stage, and she's watching things. And lo and behold, the oafish character of Bouchon sneaks up upon her and he grabs her and he tries to force himself on her. There's a struggle that happens. Luckily, she retaliates by grabbing him. She hits him with a steaming iron and it goes directly to his face. And he cries out in pain and he runs out to the stage screaming. And our kind priest goes to get him help. Meanwhile, the doctor is furious. At this point, the play stops. He tells the priest the theater is closed. No more theater. The doctor threatens him once again to get the Marquis under control, or he will. So, he doesn't like being made to be the fool. And let's face it, the Marquis um, didn't mind pissing all over him, effectively. So, uh, the priest Colliard confronts the Marquis and takes away all his writing materials. The Marquis throws a fit, suggesting he can't live without them. That's his soul. He needs to be able to put his words out into the world. That's how he works through his troubles and his pain and all that stuff. The priest suggests that he try reading instead of writing. Hold on one second, guys. My stupid tablet's acting up again. There we go. The Marquis is visited by his wife, a sweet woman giving him gifts. Um, and at this point, he's like a child throwing a tantrum. Um, he basically slaps her and then yells at her. She tells him to calm down. She says, "Listen, you're pissing people off like you always do, but you're pissing off the wrong guy. This doctor guy has clout. He's the kind of guy that's going to make life difficult for you. He's the guy that got to make your life a living hell. And you put yourself in this situation. You were living in a perfect world. Despite the fact that you were living in an asylum, you were pampered, given the finest foods. You had a beautiful couch, you had a piano, you had your quills, you had your paper, you had your ink, and you're pissing off this guy, and this guy's going to make life difficult for you." And he basically screams at her and tells her to go away. It's like, "What good are you, you cow?" And he tells the guard to grab her and get her out of here, effectively. So next scene, we see the doctor. He's at home and he's chatting with the architect, and the architect was proclaiming his young bride wants all these fancy things. The architect's telling the doctor, and he's like, "Unfortunately, um, your budget has kind of run dry." And the doctor's like, "Just go ahead. and do it, and I'll find a way to come up with the money. So the doctor is telling him this, and while this happens, the wife of the Marquis de Sade comes in to talk to the doctor, and the doctor's like, this is the kind of thing that's done by appointment. She's like, I know, but this is of grave importance, and I couldn't send you a letter and wait for an appointment. So she basically, begs him to cure her husband. She said, and if you can't cure him, just harness the beast in some way. And he's kind of in shock because, he thinks that she's going to come up to him, kind of begging for him to be lenient on the Marquis and to get him released. And just the opposite. She's like, this guy's kind of a prick, and we need to either cure him of his disease and this bad attitude, or we need to be able to harness this guy. But one or the other. And this is where things get kind of both evil and clever. And I say evil because this is where our doctor's eyes light up, and he's like, well, the kind of treatment he needs costs a lot of money, and I just don't know if we have that kind of money to do that. He's like, if only we had a place to get the money to give him the proper treatment. And he's like, hold on a second. Don't you have a pension from the money from the sale of his books? And she's like, I do, but I mean, those books were made with dirty money, right? Through, like corruption and pornography and stuff like that. Like, why would I use those books, the money from those books? He's like, well, think about it. We could use the profit from this horrible things that he wrote in this filth and vile and use it to cure him. How poetic would that be? And her eyes kind of light up, and she's like, you're right. That is a good idea. So our doctor here, he's a very manipulative man. And as you can see, also able to control people, not only just his wife, but also, he suckered the poor Marquis de Sade's wife because he wants money so he can make his bride happy so she can go on a spending spree and decorate the house with Peruvian tiles and make it look more decadent. But anything to keep her happy, when you're a 65-year-old man and you're sleeping with a 16-year-old, I guess you got to do something to keep her happy. And I guess that's what he thinks is gonna shut her up or make her more docile. I don't know. Who knows? Uh, it's very ironic, that you got that the doctor that is moral is doing a lot of corrupt things, guys. Anyway, cuts the asylum again, and we see the Marquis de Sade, and he's eating his dinner, and it's chicken, and he's got this chicken, and he's still getting his red wine. He's still spoiled, even though they took away his quills and his pens. Um, and he's eating the chicken, and he sees the chicken bone, and all of a sudden his eyes light up, and he gets an idea. He sees the chicken bone, he sees the red wine, and he dips into it. Ah, the idea comes. He takes the chicken bone, he takes the red wine, and he goes to his bed. And of course, his bed is a white sheet. And he starts writing a story. And he spends all night writing his next tale. And of course, the next day, he gives it to the maiden, and she takes it, the serving girl, Kate Winslet, and she takes it to the people that she knows and gets it published. Now, of course, the doctor finds out about this, and he ends up going to the laundry room, and he sees a sheet that's slightly discolored. I mean, it looked like it had been cleaned, but you can still see markings uh, of color in a white sheet, and he knows that doesn't add up. He doesn't have enough evidence to really point fingers at Kate Winslet's character, the maiden, the servant girl, but he's highly suspicious. So um, next we see the young wife of the doctor, Simone, and she's in downtown Paris looking to buy the new book by the Marquis de Sade. And she finds a street merchant who sells it to her. And she's like, nice girl like you shouldn't be reading this filth, but you're lucky I have one copy. So here you go. And she goes home and she's smart because she's like, hey, this guy, if he sees me, my husband sees me reading this, he's going to fucking have a shit fit. So what does she do? She takes she takes a book and rips out the pages, and she takes the new book and glues it right in. So it looks like she's reading, I don't know, it's the Bible or whatever the hell she's reading, but something moral and proper, essentially. Um, okay. So you think the Marquis de Sade would learn his lessons. They take away the sheets from his bed. They pretty much take everything out of his room at this point. The only thing he's left with is literally like a chair and the clothes on his back. But he's a guy that wants the right. And sometimes if you want something, you'll do what you got to do to get what you want. So what does he do? That evening, he breaks a piece of the mirror um, that's hanging in his room. And he's like, well, what can I use to write with? And this is where it gets kind of sick, guys. He cuts his skin and he starts writing on his clothes. And he writes his next story in his own blood. Now, the next day, our maiden girl, Kate Winslet, comes up to the bedroom and he's like, "Come here, come here." And she's like, "What?" He's like, "I know you don't have any linen for me. They took your bed and they took all your linen." He's like, "I know, but just come here, open the door. I know you have the keys. Open the door. I got to show you something." And she's kind of like, "I don't know about that." But he's like, "Just trust me." And she does have this friendship with this guy, so she does kind of trust him. So she opens the door and she's looking for. She's like, "Where are you?" And eventually, she sees him like nude in the corner, and he tries flirting with her, but it's a no go on her end. And then he's like, "I got a surprise for you, my newest book." Uh, and he hands her his clothing, which has this newest story, and he shows her where the story starts and where the story ends. Now, where things get unfortunately go a little bit array here is there is a servant girl um, that saw her open the cell and walk into the cell. And that's a big no-no. The servant girls aren't supposed to be doing that. I mean, they have the keys, but they're not really supposed to be going inside there. And especially with a guy like Marquis de Sade, who is labeled as dangerous. I guess they're afraid he can corrupt young maidens and servants. So um, this is a big no-no. So of course she rats them out. And hold on one second. And she's basically taken outside um, publicly in front of servants and patients, and the doctor has her whipped. Um, and the lashings are pretty harsh. Um, the priest tells the doctor, if you're gonna get whipped, um, if you're gonna whip her, whip me. Sorry, guys, I lost my train of thought there. He's like, if you're gonna whip her, whip me. And the doctor says, I was like, listen, I'm not gonna whip you, dude. If you want to get whipped, you should get whipped for something you believe in, like God, not for some stupid chambermaid. But the thing is, throughout this entire film, guys, our priest and our chambermaid, Joaquin and Kate, there's a certain chemistry there. And it's this whole forbidden thing, obviously, because he's a priest and he has vows, and she's a chambermaid. And I think she respects that he has vows, but there is this unspoken chemistry on both their end, and I think she is quite smitten with him. And he has feelings for her, but he never acts on them because he wants to do the right thing. He genuinely believes in helping these people in this asylum. He thinks he can do good, and he knows that that's something that's a no-no. So he's fighting that urge. Um, After she gets whipped, um, our priest goes up to Madeline, by the way. I couldn't remember her name, which so I kept on calling the chambermaid. Lost track of her name for a second. Same reason I'm calling him the priest. And he's like, why are you helping him? I don't get it. And she basically explains, she's like, when I read his stories, she says I can put myself in her, she can put herself in his stories. She allows herself to be bad while reading. She can be part of this fantasy. Um, but when she's in real life, she's a good person and she can't. So it's just really escapism. And I think she also sees that, yeah, this guy's writing this crazy stuff, but this guy isn't crazy. I mean, he's probably crazy to some degree, but no crazier than most people you meet, especially here in Jersey, guys. I mean, so what? He likes erotic fiction, he likes to write. But back then, that's the kind of thing that you get hung or you get killed for, or at least chastised. Um, but she doesn't really see him as this threat. She just sees him as this eccentric, wacky guy that writes erotic fiction, and she enjoys it. So she kind of forms a friendship with our man, the Marquis de Sade, just like she forms this friendship and strong feelings for um, our priest. You know, so we kind of see this unspoken. Hold on one second, guys. This friendship between her and the Marquis de Sade, and like I said, a relationship that never quite fully develops between her and the priest, just because I don't think it just can happen, even if both of them do want it. Meanwhile, we cut to Simone, the doctor's wife, young wife, and the architect Pruex. And it begins with her flirting with him, and she's like, "Oh, I have a book I think you should read." When he opens it up, he realizes it's a book by the Marquis de Sade. He thinks, "Oh, like shocked. Well, you shouldn't be reading this, young lady. Are you sure you should be reading this?" She's like, "Oh, I love the ideas of it." And it starts with a flirtation, and she's like, "I love some of the sexual ideas," and she's like, "I wish someone would show me." She's basically throwing herself at this guy. I might know this is young Stephen Moyer, and he's a good looking dude. So I get it. Simone, she's pretty attractive. He's a good looking dude in his 20s. I get it. I do. So basically, they start an affair right under the doctor's nose. Um, well, it's bound to happen. Let's face it. She's with a guy that's old enough to be her grandfather, let alone her father, and he's a bit of an asshole, to put it very mildly. Um, we cut back to the asylum. It's nighttime. We see the priest of Madeline, um, and they talk, and again, you can see that there's a connection, and Madeline kind of like wants him to pursue things, but he said, I can't because I'm a priest. And it's like, I'll always be there for you, but I just can't as much as I want to. And you can see that he's fighting it. Um, so they have this little discussion. We got a lot of cutting back and forth. And then we cut back to the doctor. The doctor come home. Excuse me. I can make words, guys. I promise. It's been a long day. The doctor comes home after a long day's work. And what does he see? But he sees the book. And when he opens it, he sees it's a book by the Marquis de Sade. And inside the book is a note. And the note basically is telling the doctor to go fuck himself, that she has run off with the architect and go fuck yourself. I'm done with your shit. And, well, to put it mildly, um, that sets the doctor off. You know, he goes back to the asylum and he starts taking out his rage on the Marquis de Sade. I mean, he already had reason to not like him to begin with. They just never got along, those two. But he starts torturing him. He brings him into this water dunking torture device and starts dunking him back and forth. And, he's just really just making life a living hell for him. And he, like I said, obviously part of it is because he never liked him. You can see part of it's because his wife was inspired by the Marquis de Sade. But hey, listen, the doctor deserves whatever he gets. The doctor's a bit of an asshole. Like I've pointed out a couple times already. Bear with me for here just a second, guys. Again, my tablet is acting up tonight for some reason. Moving around a lot today, guys. So Madeline sees the Marquis, and she tells him to whisper a story to her. She's like, "We can't give up." You would think she would have. She just got whipped. And he's like, "How am I supposed to do that? I don't know how am I supposed to tell you a story?" And then his eyes light up, and you see him look in his jail cell or the insane asylum cell. Same thing, effectively. There's a hole that leads to the next prisoner's cell, and he says, "Come back later on tonight." And when she comes back later on tonight, he tells her to go to the far end, to the servants' chamber, and she sits there with a quill and pen, and he starts telling a tale. And how this works is he goes to the hole in his cell, and the prisoner next to him, he tells the first paragraph, and that prisoner tells um, the paragraph to the prisoner in the cell next to him, who also has a hole in his cell, so on and so forth until it reaches Madeline. Um, so they're knee deep in the middle of this, his next erotic masterpiece, and it's going pretty well. Unfortunately, things get a little bit hairy because one of the prisoners just happens to be a pyromaniac. He loves setting shit on fire. Oh, fire, fire. Bad Beavis imitation there, guys. Um, and at a certain point, even though because he's a pyromaniac, he doesn't have access to candles. Um, he sees in his neighbor cell, the next one over, where he's whispering into the hole, he sees a candle that he can reach. So the pyromaniac grabs the candle and he starts shutting his. It starts with him lighting his bed sheets on fire, and of course the whole room catches on fire. Then the guards barge in, they let him out, but he's still got the candle and he's starting to light everything on fire. Uh, and before you know it, there's a lot of things that are on fire. So the guards are letting all the prisoners out. So chaos ensues, because the guards can't contain all these people here. So people are having orgies. People are running around crazy, just sputtering nonsense. Meanwhile, um, the Marquis is unfortunately one of the few people that did not get out. He's still in a cell. Um, but what he does see is he sees Bouchon, the oafish uh, Shrek-like guy I described, go up to Madeline, our servant girl, and he grabs her. And she tries her best to fight him off, but he really has got a firm grip. And despite her fighting, things do not go well. In the meantime, our priest, Joaquin Phoenix, kind of senses that Madeline might be in danger. And, despite the conversation they had earlier about saying he can't really pursue her in a romantic manner, he still really does love her. And it's just him just trying to be a good person and trying to resist the urge, fight the urge of falling in love. So his first instinct is to go looking for her. And he's frantic looking throughout the entire asylum. And he goes past the Marquis in his cell, and Marquis is visibly upset. And he's like, Bouchon, I saw Bouchon grab Madeline. And I heard their voices that way, because he does feel a ting of guilt. He knows that he's not insane, but most people here are insane. This guy, it's very obvious this guy Bouchon from the very beginning wants to fuck Madeline, and he wants to probably just rape her because he's got the IQ that's probably no bigger than his shoe size. He's not a bright guy. So our priest goes everywhere, running frantically looking for Madeline. Unfortunately, he doesn't find Madeline at first, but he does find Bouchon, and he's got blood all over him, especially on his face. And he's like, Where's Madeline? What did you do to her? He's like, I'm sorry, or something along those lines. And then he points this big tub of water, the vat water where they do the laundry. And in this tub of with the laundry, we see the dead body of Madeline, fortunately. And he breaks down in tears and starts crying, of course. Um, but it's too late, there's nothing they can do. The priest then confronts the Marquis, blaming him for the death of Madeline. He's like, you just have to keep pushing it, don't you? Just push and push and push. And this is finally what happens. And at first, uh, the Marquis is really kind of trying to stick up for himself almost, which is kind of sleazy. But then he realizes he's like, listen, I'm sorry. We both cared for her. But at this point, the priest is he's just too far gone. He's grief stricken and he's also just mad. So we see him bring the Marquis into one of effectively like a torture room, effectively, with two guards. And he has the two guards cut the Marquis's tongue out of his mouth and put it in a jar. And now he can't even. This shows you something about the priest. He can't even sit through the entire process. At a certain point, he gets up and walks, and you can see it goes against his nature of who he is and what he wants to do. I think he just finally has flipped the switch and he's gone past the point of like, I can't take it anymore. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. So he has the Marquis de Sade's tongue removed from his mouth and put in a jar. He goes up to the doctor and just slams the jar on his desk. And the doctor's like, "Oh, I didn't know you had it in you. It's about time you did what you had to do." And grief stricken, the priest just walks away. Um, and he goes to his room and he flagellates himself with a whip, just whips himself the back of his um, until he cries. Um, Hold on a second, guys. Bear with me. Come on, work with me here, tablet. Don't be a pain in the ass. Hold on. Bear with me, guys. Okay, this is being a pain in the ass here, guys. So I'm gonna try to wing it from here on. Uh-oh, John's got to wing it. So what happens next is he actually finds the body of Madeline, and basically he starts kissing her when he tells her he loves her and he's sorry for what happened and all this kind of nonsense. Bear with me, guys. Sorry, I know I'm moving around a lot today. I'm trying to my tablet's acting up. I think because I spent the last 3 hours writing, so I think the charge is almost gone. Um, so yeah, he starts making out with her. He starts kissing her, and things start getting a little bit tense. And then he actually imagines that she's alive and they're making love, and things are about to venture into that really next step of having sex with a corpse. But luckily, a guard barges in and he's like, "Oh, we need you. We need you. Come on." And he's like, "What? What now?" The Marquis. So he goes into the Marquis cell, and the Marquis cell is just covered um, with shit. What he did was the Marquis wrote a story on the jail cell walls with his own feces. And the Marquis is almost passed out. He's on the floor. Obviously, can't say anything because his tongue is cut out, and he definitely does not look good. He looks like he's on the verge of death himself. Um, and our priest, he has a moment of pity and sympathy, and he lies down next to him, real close to him. He prays. He's like, "I'm praying for your soul. Did everything I could, despite the fact that you beyond angered me and made me full of rage. I'm still praying for you." And the Marquis, what does he do? He grabs his necklace, his bead with the cross, and he rips it off his neck and shoves it down his throat and he swallows it. And from there, the Marquis de Sade chokes on it and dies. So everyone gets a nice little happy ending here, guys. We cut to our next scene, and we have the doctor, and the doctor is now in charge of the entire operation, and he is soon greeted by a young, new, blonde-haired priest, and he welcomes him, and he says, "I'll give you a tour," and he's showing him around, and at a certain point, we see all the well-behaved people in the asylum, and they're working on what looks like books. And he's like, "They're working on books, and they're so well-behaved." And he's like, "What are these books?" And he's shocked when he sees the books are published works of the Marquis de Sade. And he's like, "Isn't this blasphemous?" And the doctor tells him, "Well, you got to keep in mind that, you know, we figure we can make some money on this." And the priest is like, "Make money off it?" He's like, "Well, as you can tell, the asylum has taken some damage, unfortunately due from a fire, and we have to come up with money. So I'm using the people in the asylum, and we're reprinting his books to make money for that cause. So again, hypocrite guy. And here we go, the guy that's sleeping with the 16-year-old doctor, sleeping with the 16-year-old, this guy that thought the Marquis de Sade was Mr. Amoral, but here he is at the end of the movie, and he's using his books to make money, and I'm sure it's not all going to the asylum for that matter. Um, but the young priest kind of sees the logic in it, even if he doesn't 100% agree with it. So the doctor continues to give him a dime store tour, basically, showing all around. And then finally they get to one cell, and in this cell, who is in the cell but none other than the priest. Um, and he said, unfortunately, some of our more dangerous patients can't be let out into the open, and they're restrained to their room. And he's like, uh, this is the gentleman that used to be uh, in your position, the priest. And priest Joaquin Phoenix is like, you need to let me out of here. He's like, this place is pure evil, and I need to be able to write about it. I need a quills and a pen so I can set my demons free and talk about the evil that reigns within this place. And the doctor tells the young new priest, he's like, don't listen to him. And by all means, among anything else, make sure you never give him quills and a pen. A man like him is dangerous. Um, so effectively, and I'm trying to give it justice here, effectively, we see Joaquin Phoenix take on the role of the Marquis de Sade in the sense that he's been through hell and back, and now he's liberated, and he's got something to say, uh, and he wants to speak of the evils that take place in this insane asylum. Um, so the doctor and the young new priest walk away, and you can see Joaquin Phoenix, and he's still very upset. We see an old lady drop off quills and a pen. It's like she's like, "Here, take this and write what you must. I'll help you get it out to the world." Uh, and the movie ends like that, guys. Um, the movie is really effective. I mean, like I said, it's not 100% based on truth, um, by no means, but sometimes you don't have to be 100% based on truth. You just have to have a good story. And this one has a fantastic story. Um, it has a fantastic story. It has great acting. It has great directing. It's beautiful cinematography. Even has beautiful costuming. Everything gets it right. All the performances are awesome. And even some of the themes, like the idea of like, okay, we obviously live in a world now where supposedly we have free speech, right? But we're in this world also where you have free speech, which is awesome. But doesn't mean people won't criticize you for saying it. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But back then, you didn't even have that. Um, and at the end of the day, let's face it, whether it's back then or today, whether you agree or don't agree, you should always be able to say what's on your mind. And, you know, you shouldn't get locked in an insane asylum for writing some, erotic fiction. If that's what gets you off and that's what you enjoy, you know, so be it. The importance of being able to write or say what's on your mind, um, whether it's creative, political, or just pure nonsense, should be something that's a fundamental right that all human beings that are able to form sentences, or even some that aren't able to form sentences, should have the right to. We should all be entitled to that, and I think at the end of the day, that's really a big part of the message of this film. I mean, yeah, all the characters in this film are wild. The Doctor is pure evil, obviously. um, you see Joaquin Phoenix's character, a guy that really went in with the best intentions. He really wanted to make life better for the people in this asylum, and treat them like humans. and treat them humanely. Um, and eventually things got corrupted and things went bad. Um, even uh, the Marquis, he took it too far. Because that period in time you didn't have free speech. You couldn't just do it right what you want, especially if it was erotic fiction. But at the end of the day, all he wanted to do was live the life he wanted to live, you know. And then we have Kate Winslet's character, like I discussed. Her character, all she really wanted to do, she was such a good person in real life. She just wanted to enjoy and live vicariously through some of these crazy stories that some of the crazy things that these people do in these stories and be the bad girl in the story. But she really was effectively a really good person. Not everyone would put their life on the line to help a convicted, criminal, um, try to get his work out in the world. You know, the only real bastard in this film is the doctor. But so be it. So yeah, guys, I would highly recommend this film. Definitely worth your time. Definitely check it out. Um, just want to thank everyone for all the continued support. Really love you guys. This has been awesome doing this. I'm really excited. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds stupid, but I sometimes get disheartened by the views on my channel, and it shouldn't matter. But you put a lot of work into this stuff, and you really want to see it get out there and just reach a wider audience. Even if that wider audience has something to say, or whether they agree or disagree. They have comments, which I welcome, by the way. I welcome feedback, positive, negative, any comments you have to say. I'm always wanting to hear it. Um, but yeah, so long story longer, I someone that's been doing it for over a year. For the most part, I don't have a ton of views, and that's okay. Like sometimes I get 11, 12 views. Sometimes I get 15, 20, which is great because it's great that I have that audience. But obviously, sometimes you get disheartened because you're like, you want to be able to reach as many people as possible. It's not an ego thing. It's more you really want to reach and you want to connect with people, you know. So long story longer, my last video, thanks to you guys, big stand. I just hit like 51 as of today, which is a big milestone for me. I know for a lot of podcasters and YouTubers, people get like 600 views, maybe thousands views, Um, it was a big deal to see that, and it meant a lot to me because it meant that I was, reaching 51 people that took the time to watch my video and hopefully enjoy it. And really, just for me, it was a chance to connect with you guys, and I think that's really important. And like I said, I don't have to have these tremendous numbers. It's not what it's about. It's about connecting with an audience. That's what it's always been about to me. I've never looked at these conversations I have with you guys um, as a film dissection or even a proper film review. Um, it's me just having a conversation with you, my audience, even if you are kind of quiet, guys, or like I said when I started earlier, me having a conversation with some fellow friends. Um, and just really getting what I think and what my ideas are on something. And that's what my channel has always been about. It's always been about that. And obviously, uh, putting the spotlight on films that I think deserve love, films that I feel like don't get enough attention. So that's always been the intent of my channel. Um, Long story longer, I just want to thank you guys because it meant a lot. Like I said, I saw my last video, which is 2 weeks ago, big stand, hit, like I said, 51 views, and that meant the world to me. And keep on keeping, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Leave comments, leave feedback, good or bad, doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, let me change that. Preferably good, but obviously, if it's bad, it's bad. I don't care. Um, Tell me if you disagree. Tell me if you agree. Tell me if you have suggestions. I'm all ears. Um, so yeah, that's today's episode 45. Took my slow ass long enough to get another episode out, but I finally got another episode out. This weekend, probably Sunday, is what we have set in stone. I'm going to be recording the newest Spotlight episode. Um, I've been lucky enough to do that with Jose and Justin these last few months. We've talked about films like Condor Man, and we've talked about Women in Love, and we talked about The Devils. And this Sunday, we're going to be talking about the 1969 film Hannibal Brooks. And then also next month, we're going to be talking about a 1960s film called The Assassination Bureau, which is the next Oliver Reed film for next month. And that's going to have Oliver Reed and Diana Riggs. It also has Terry Savalas, of all people, before he did Kojak. So it's a fun movie, definitely worth checking out. You can find it on Prime. I want to say Prime and Tubi. Same thing with Hannibal Brooks. Hannibal Brooks you can find on Amazon Prime. But they also do have physical releases as well. So yeah, that's the next big thing that I have planned. I also have hopefully some special guests lined up in the near future. I've already um, got two special guests that are going to be locked down for the 15th. Rob and Joe from Caliber 9 from Outer Space are going to be joining me on September 15th, and we're going to be talking about the Roger Corman film Little Shop of Horrors. And then I'm also trying to get my buddy Troy um, to join me for an episode, hopefully. Keep my fingers crossed, Troy. I know you got a busy schedule. Um, and I'm hoping to also get some other guests lined up. And of course, I still want to do some more graphic novels. I've been gone for 2 weeks. Like I said, I've been a busy boy. So I'm hoping in this upcoming week, I'm hoping to try to squeeze in a graphic novel because as much as I am a film geek, I'm also very much a comic book nerd. So yeah, that's all the big news. Again, fellow podcasters that you should be listening to, guys, definitely check out Not a Bomb with Troy and Brad. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, they were kind enough to have me on last week for Euro Trip. They're an awesome podcast, and every week they talk about films that were either a critical failure or a commercial failure and make the determination whether they genuinely deserve that title. Because a lot of times there are films that do not deserve the title of a bomb, like Euro Trip, Brad and Troy. That's right. I said it, Euro Trip, not a bomb. Take that. No, they're allowed to have their opinion, even if they're fucking wrong. Yeah, that's right. Fucking wrong. No, I'm joking with you. I'm joking. You guys know that. Um, so check out Not a Bomb. Of course, got Will and Sam with the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. These guys are awesome. They cover such a wide spectrum of films. This past week, they covered the Wachowski sisters' first film, Bound, which is an excellent film and it's worthy of many discussions. So check out Will and Sam and The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. Next, I will mention Watch Skip Plus with Jose and Alex. Love Jose, and I'm starting to love Alex. He's a good guy. I just met him on Sunday like I said, when we recorded Strange Darling. Both great guys, and they're doing the Lord's work because they're getting out to theaters every weekend, and they're giving you a current film, and they're getting into a deep discussion, um, and again, determining whether you should see that movie or not, or you should skip that movie. Another cool thing about Watch Skip Plus is they have a plus. And the plus could be something like a piece of technology. It could be a new book they read. It could be another movie they saw. It could be an article they read. It could be a hair care product, or it could be anything. But it's another really cool aspect of the show that makes it unique and makes it interesting. And they just have a really good conversation. Um, Next up, we have Raiders of the Podcast. Raiders of the Podcast. These guys are absolutely amazing. I just don't know how they manage to do it every week. They do at least two films. In some cases, they'll cover four films, guys. This week, they're covering all of the Crow movies, and they're covering the pilot for the Crow's TV series Stairway to Heaven. Um, and they're going to be touching bases, I believe, on the 2024 Crow movie that just came out last Friday. So, and this is pretty common for them. I mean, they usually do at least once a month. They'll have like a special where they do like 3 or 4 films. And then, like I said, every week they cover 2 films. Um, and these guys just have great chemistry. Um, they love busting each other's chops. But more importantly, besides busting each other's chops and having great chemistry, they love talking film, like a lot of us film nerds. And again, just another really fantastic podcast. Um, and that finally brings me to my boys, Caliber 9 from Outer Space, Rob and Joe. And Rob and Joe, also just another fantastic podcast. Like I said, I haven't met Joe yet. I'm going to be meeting him in a couple weeks, and I can't wait. Rob is a super nice guy, and their format is also 2 movies. And what's cool about it is they basically almost have like a drive-in format. They'll have their A movie, and then they'll have their B movie. A lot of people don't realize when they think B movies, um, they think like direct to video because that's the current inception of how we think of B movies. But back in the day, all a B movie really was an incentive for you to go to the movie theaters. So big production companies would have these AAA title movies with your big movie star, but as an incentive to get people to go to the movies, they would have what would be called a B movie. And that would be a slightly more low budget fare. Um, but that was the original intent behind the concept of a B movie. Where nowadays I feel like and I people when I say people that are assholes, think of B movie and they just think of it's like a pile of shit, pardon my French. But originally that was never the intention. Like I said, it was a marketing ploy to get people to go to the movies. You get your A movie, and we're gonna throw you a B movie. And what's interesting about that also is sometimes the B movies were more entertaining than the A movie, So it goes to show you how things change over time and how people's perspectives change over time. Like I said, I've always loved um, A movies, but I've also loved B movies, and I also think there are quite a few B movies that have a lot of merit and are beautifully done. And some people also technically shouldn't be putting certain films in the category of B movies. Sometimes they're put in the category of B movies because of the budget, and it's just like just because it's low budget doesn't mean it's this negative aspect. Sometimes great things come out of low budgets. But anyway, I digress, guys. If I keep on going, they're gonna get me on another rant here. And unfortunately, as I'm filming this, it's about 10:25 in the evening, and I still got to go to work tomorrow. So I gotta I gotta get out of here. I gotta get some sleep, or at least attempt to. But I love you guys, and again, I appreciate all the support, and I appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. If you guys love this channel and you love what I'm doing, do me a favor, man. Check out my YouTube channel, obviously. Subscribe, like I said. Check out my Facebook group on Facebook, and now for something a little bit different. It's easy to join. And if you really love these video guys, do me a favor, if you don't mind, share it on your social media. Like share it to your Instagram or share it to your Facebook page or whatever else you want to share it to. Help spread the word. We're trying to build a community, and I'm really proud to say that we have a really good community now. But I want to spread the love. I want to get this out there, guys. And with your help, we can do that. And I do have some other surprises coming. They're just in the works, and because they're still in the early stages, I don't want to make announcements yet, but there are some fun surprises that I'll hopefully be able to announce in the next month or so. But that I say adieu in this, because we're doing a French film, French characters. I say adieu, adieu. But anyway, have a great night, guys, and stay tuned for Sunday, because by Sunday afternoon we will have our next episode 46, where, like I said, we'll be talking Hannibal Brooks. So have a good week, guys, and I will talk to you soon.